When I was a younger man, am I on? When I was a younger man, I was an evil person. I didn't think I was. I thought I was serving God. I thought I was doing right. You got to understand, I was raised on stories of the great Phineas, the Jew in the Old Testament who took a sword and ran through the other Jews who were worshiping idols and stopped a plague and was blessed by God for it. I grew up on stories of Mattathias, the village priest in our fairly recent history, who killed a fellow Jew to stop him from sacrificing to Zeus and sparked a rebellion that threw off Syrian rule. I knew that that's what you did with heretics. Those who worshiped false gods, especially those who influenced others to worship false gods, you had to stop them by any means, including death when necessary. And so when recently a new heresy sprung up here in Jerusalem, claiming a recently executed criminal was equal to God himself, I stood up against it. In my mind, I was a new Mattathias. I was the new Phineas standing against the new evil that was seducing my fellow Jews away from worshiping the one true God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob. And so when one of their leading men was arrested, I cheered. When a mob dragged him out of court and out to stone him, I was right there egging him on. And when the main witnesses who were to throw the first stones to begin the death sentence, when they were getting ready to throw, I offered to hold their cloaks so they could throw powerfully and aim well and end this heresy. And I kept on fighting the heresy. Every opportunity that came my way. I couldn't argue them down in the synagogue, but I could lead the movement against them. Arrest them, imprison them, testify against them. So with the support of the high priest, they gave me a squad of soldiers. I and my temple soldiers would follow up on every rumor, every report of these new heretics. We were good. We would wait till they were at home for the noon meal, or maybe when they were in the evening, just starting to relax from the day. And we would break down the door, yelling on top of our lungs, swords out, and arrest them. If they resisted, the soldiers kind of liked it when they resisted, because then they got to chase them down or beat them down. And then I heard that the cowards were fleeing. Instead of standing up for what they believed, they were running off to other places, away from Jerusalem. And they weren't keeping quiet. They were continuing to spread this false doctrine. Some headed down south into Egypt, into Alexandria, where there was a group of Jews living. But many headed to Damascus, up north, past Galilee, where there's a large Jewish community in that city. They were there, and they were still spreading the lies. They thought they were safe there, away from Jerusalem, away from the temple authorities. But I went to the high priest. I went to my friends in the temple hierarchy, and I said, give me letters of extradition. Give me letters asking permission to arrest these people and bring them back here to Jerusalem for trial. And they agreed. They knew the danger as well as I did. And I got my letters. I got my squad of soldiers that I'd worked with through this time. And we headed north to Damascus. And I probably don't have to tell you what happened on the road to Damascus. I will never forget that day. It was sunny, it was bright, but the light around me was so much brighter than I had ever imagined possible. I felt myself falling. I couldn't catch myself as I'm laying stunned on the road. I hear a voice, and all I can say is, "Who are you?" And the voice said, "I'm Jesus, who you're persecuting." And I started to realize how wrong I was. To say it was life-changing is like saying water is damp. All right, it was everything I knew, everything I thought, everything I assumed, I believed, I understood, all of it changed. Over the next few days, I was sitting in darkness. I was blinded by that light, and I was still blind a few days later. And over the next few days, I sat with my own thoughts, alone, trying to figure this out. And the pieces started falling into place. I was raised a good Jew. I studied under Gamaliel, the leading expert of our day. I knew my Torah. I knew the prophets. I knew the writings. And it started making sense. Surely he's borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. We despised him. We thought God smote him, but God has laid on him our sins. All of these different statements started making sense. And I started realizing it all pointed to Jesus. And the men and women I thought were heretics, were wrong, were evil, they had it right. After a few days, a man came to see me, told me his name was Ananias, said God told him to come and heal my blindness, and he did. He prayed for me, laid hands on me, and I could see again, and I immediately went to the synagogue. They were expecting me. They knew I was coming. They didn't know what they were going to get, but they knew I was coming. So when I showed up there, they welcomed me, and asked me to speak. I started opening the scriptures and started explaining how every part of our beloved sacred text points to Jesus. That he was the Messiah. He is the Messiah. I told them I was wrong. I told them they needed to change their allegiance away from the temple to Jesus. They weren't happy. Some were. Some listened and responded. Most weren't. But I went on talking. I went on arguing. Again, I was trained by Gamaliel. I knew my stuff. And now I understood the truth. So I was talking. Every day I was there arguing, reasoning, discussing, explaining how all of Torah, all the prophets, all the writings point to Jesus. I'll tell you, I was having the time of my life. I was loving it. I was growing in my faith, seeing people come to Christ, discipling new believers. But before too long, Jerusalem started crowding back into my thoughts, especially at night when it got quiet and I was trying to go to sleep. Activity ceased. The faces of the believers I had arrested, I testified against, they haunted me. There was even nightmares where I was throwing the stone that killed Stephen. Or in my dreams, I was watching my soldiers chase down and beat a believer, and I was trying to yell for them to stop. They were wrong, and no sound would come out. And I was forced to watch what I was over and over. I relived my days as a persecutor in those terrible days, those terrible dreams. One day I found myself on the receiving end of what I had given out so often. A friend told me the Jewish leaders in Damascus had people waiting at the gate. And when I left, the next time I left the city, they were going to follow me and kill me. I said, I've heard this kind of thing before. Don't worry about it. No big deal. But the believers said, no, this is real. You need to secretly leave the city. And I knew the time had come to head back to Jerusalem, to try to make amends for the horrible things I did there. And I did. I slipped out secretly out of Damascus. But the closer I got to Jerusalem, the harder it was to keep going. I'd spent months trying to forget what I'd done there, to put it behind me, to concentrate on my new life. But I knew I had to go back. As I walked through the gates, I so clearly remembered leaving Damascus a couple years before that. Leaving Jerusalem on my horse with my soldiers, so puffed up with pride and self-righteousness and arrogance, so certain I was doing God a favor, and so wrong. This time as I walked back through the gates, one of the first places I saw was a house. I knew the family that lived there. It was an old house, been in the family for generations, but the front door was new. And that hit me. I knew why that door was new. I had broken that door down, going after the people that lived there. And that's when the tears started. Down the street was another house. I remembered the man and woman in that house. He tried to shield her from me. He was so calm, so self-assured. At the time, it made me so angry. But now he's my hero. And every time I face persecution, I remember him and try to be like him. And I don't even know his name, but he's my hero. Another house is empty now. The people that lived there had fled, didn't come back. I don't know where they are. I pray God protects them. Oh, and there's an alley that I passed where I saw my soldiers chase down and beat a woman who tried to escape. Memory after memory assailed me as I walked through Jerusalem. The man who asked me to spare his wife, and I punched him in the face for his insolence. The woman who tried to hide from me, and maybe worst of all, the children who fled in terror. Or the one child that didn't flee fast enough, and I kicked out of the way like a dog. That's what I thought they were. All the memories I tried to bury, I tried to forget, flooded back as I walked through Jerusalem that day. I finally got to the marketplace where I sat down to kind of regroup. After a little bit, I looked up to see a man I knew named Josiah, a believer who had arrested, he'd been released, and I thought, there's someone I can go and beg forgiveness. I walked up to him. He looked at me, he went white, he turned and ran. He just fled from me. Later that evening, I saw another man I knew named Marcus. I walked up to him. He didn't recognize me right at first, so I was able to say, Marcus, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did. What can I do? I told him, I can't ask you to forgive me for what I did, but what can I do to make amends? He looked at me. He said, well, my children are still having nightmares. My youngest child is terrified to have me or my wife out of his sight. I don't know when that'll ever end. He said, look, if you really want to make amends, just stay away from my family. And one after another made excuses, fled. A few let me know what they think. Most were still scared of me. One older lady, you could tell she had nothing to lose. She looked at me and she said, you may have the people in Damascus fooled, but we know who you are. We know what you did. We know you're just here trying to get information to follow up and wipe us out. If you're genuine, and I don't believe for a minute you are, but if you're really genuine in what you're saying, who you are now, you should just leave. Just go. That's how we'll know you're real. Day after day, one after another, most were civil. Some were angry. All were suspicious. All refused to listen. All made it clear they wanted nothing to do with me. And they were right. I deserved all of it and more. But finally, after trying and trying, I'd had enough. I went to the marketplace, found a place to sit, and try to figure out what was next. I couldn't stay in Jerusalem. I wasn't wanted in Jerusalem, clearly. I couldn't go back to Damascus. They were still wanting to kill me there. Where could I go? Maybe Tarsus, my old hometown? Go back in failure? Run home to mommy? But what else? What could I do? There wasn't anything for me there. But that seemed best. Maybe I could go back there to regroup, to heal, to figure out what to do next. And somebody walked, I realized through my tears, somebody had walked up and sat down next to me. And I looked over at him and he said, do you know who I am? I said, maybe. I kind of recognize you. I'm sorry if this is not true, but I think you're a believer in Jesus. He said, yes, I am. He said, my name is Joseph, but my friends call me Barnabas. I said, okay. I thought, Barnabas, son of encouragement, if you're trying to cheer me up, just don't. Just stop. I'm not in the mood. Barnabas said, I've been watching you. I've talked to people about you. I've talked to people who are from Damascus, and I believe you. I think you're real, and I want to help you. Well, I wasn't in the mood for help. I said, look, I appreciate it. It means a lot to me, but you're the only person in Jerusalem who feels this way. No one wants me here. I should not have come, and I'm leaving. He said, wait. You need to come with me first. I said, he stood up. I said, why? Where are you going? He said, just come. All right. I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. I'm about to leave anyway, so wherever he's going to take me is not going to be worse than what I've already faced here. I'll come with him. So we walked together to a house. He knocks on the door, and I realize it's Peter's house. I'm like, whoa, no. I haven't faced him yet. I don't want to face Peter. Everybody else has been bad enough. No, I'm out of here. He says, like, stand here. Knocks on the door. Peter answers, and as I thought he would, he sees Barnabas. His face lights up. He sees me, and he goes, what is he doing here? And Barnabas said, listen, Peter, stop. Calm down. I want to talk to you. And Barnabas stood there and told Peter, this guy is genuine. He said, I talked to the soldiers that were with him on the road. This really happened. I talked to the believers in Damascus. This really happened. This guy is the real deal. Peter said, look, I don't trust him. And Barnabas said, look, I know you don't, and I understand that. He said, but Peter, you know what it's like to need a second chance. If anyone in Jerusalem should be willing to give Saul a second chance, it's you. And the look Peter gave him, I'm sure he's thinking, you went there? Seriously? Okay. But Peter said, oh, okay. I'm still not sure. I'm not convinced, but I'll listen. Went inside. I told him about my conversion, my ministry in Damascus, and I begged for forgiveness for what I'd done to the church in Jerusalem. I ended up staying with him. More than 2 weeks. I met James as he was visiting as well. By the end of my time there, I wasn't really close to Peter, but we were friends. I'd laid a foundation for a long-term relationship with Peter and the other leaders in Jerusalem. And it was all because Barnabas was willing to take a risk on me. Barnabas became one of my closest friends, definitely my closest friend in Jerusalem. And I realized what Barnabas was like. He saw the best in everybody. He wasn't just the encourager to give a compliment, make you feel better. He was the guy who would stand beside you when everybody else left. After the 2 weeks were up, we realized the Jerusalem church still needed more time to heal. They weren't ready for me to show up. I understood that, and I realized the timing wasn't right, so I left. I headed to Tarsus, where I continued preaching, ministering, discipling people. One evening in Tarsus, there was a knock on my door this time. When I opened it, Barnabas was there. I think, whoa, awesome to see you. What are you doing here? This is fantastic. He said, listen, there's a revival going on in Antioch, which is not far from Tarsus. Gentiles are being saved. This is a new thing. It was just Jews when you were part of the church in Jerusalem, but Gentiles are being saved now, and I think you should come. And I think this is where you should be. So join me. We're going back to Antioch. And I did. It was awesome. It was almost like my Damascus days again. People getting saved, now Jews and Gentiles as well. The church was flourishing. People were growing. It was fantastic. After a little bit, I started getting a little restless, though, because the church in Antioch was doing fantastic, but there were a lot of places beyond Antioch that needed the gospel. So I didn't know what to do. I knew I was feeling a little restless. One day the church leaders said, hey, Barnabas, Saul, God spoke to us and told us that we should send you on a mission trip to start planting churches to the north and to the west up into Asia. And we did. It was fantastic. We took Barnabas' cousin, John Mark, with us, and we headed to Cyprus, which was Barnabas' home island. His hometown was on Cyprus. We went through Cyprus, preaching, got the other end of the island, took a boat back to the mainland up north. As soon as we got there, John Mark said, bye. This is not what I signed up for. I didn't expect this. I'm heading back. Left Barnabas and me to continue on preaching, traveling, planting churches. We finally got back to Antioch after doing quite a bit of church planting. Church in Antioch was still flourishing, doing great. Before too long, a few months later, I was feeling restless again. So I went to Barnabas again. I said, look, I'm wondering if we should go see the new churches, check them out, check out the new believers there, encourage them. He said, yes, fantastic idea. I've been feeling the same way. It'll be great for you, me, and John Mark to go traveling together again. And I said, whoa. I said nothing about John Mark. I don't want him to come. And Barnabas said, of course he's going to come. He's been a great help here in Antioch. He's more than ready for a journey like this again. I said, no. You're talking about the kid that bailed out on us partway through our last trip. As soon as we got back on the mainland where he could get back home, he ran for home. I don't trust him. We needed his help, and he didn't care about that. Maybe he's matured a little bit since then, but he's still got a long way to go. I'm sorry, John Mark can't come. And Barnabas said, yeah, that's who I'm talking about. He needs a chance to redeem himself. He's proven himself. He knows what he's getting into this time. You need to give him a second chance. I'm like, no. I'm sorry. He's proven me undependable. Let him prove himself somewhere else. Then I'll trust him again. He is absolutely not coming. And Barnabas said, he needs his second chance. And I'm going to see he gets a second chance. He is coming. Back and forth. Finally. Yeah, Barnabas went there. Paul, you remember who stood up for you in Jerusalem? Who gave you a second chance in Jerusalem? Now I'm asking you to give John Mark the second chance that I gave you. And I said, look, I so appreciate what you did for me. I will always be grateful for that. You're one of my closest friends. But this is different. This is not just you and me. If we take John Mark with us and he bails again in the middle of the trip, it's going to send a message to the new believers that we are untrustworthy. We cannot take him. I will not agree for him to go. And Barnabas said, look, the problem is if we leave him behind, we're sending a message to the church here that he's untrustworthy and we don't trust him. I cannot leave him behind. I'm sorry, Paul. But Barnabas said, if John's not going, I'm not going. And we went back and forth, finally realized, you know what, we can't agree on this. We're going to work separately. So gave him my blessings, and Barnabas took John Mark and headed back to Cyprus, where Barnabas knew because it's his home island. And I chose Silas. We headed up back north and west, visited the churches, went on planting churches. And from then on, Barnabas and I worked separately. We never had a chance to work together again. We pretty much lost touch. But every now and then, I'd hear what he's doing, where he's working, the churches he's building. And every time I hear that, I hear he's still Barnabas. He's still the encourager. He's still the guy that is getting in there and giving a second chance, reaching out to people that failed and building them up. He's still standing up for the underdog, just like he did for me. And I will forever be grateful for Barnabas. Let me wrap up my story. Oh, I should also mention, John Mark, Barnabas was right. John Mark proved himself. Later, he actually came back to work with me again because Barnabas gave him a second chance. Let me wrap it up with this. Find yourself a Barnabas. Find someone who not just gives compliments and makes you feel good, but who genuinely stands by you when everybody else walks away. Who gives you your second chance and your third chance and your fourth chance. And if you can't find a Barnabas, or even if you do, be Barnabas. Be the person who sees the best in those around you, who looks past their faults and their failures and sees what they could be by the grace of God. Be a person who recognizes that just like Jesus forgave you and gave you the second chance and the third chance and the fourth chance, I need to treat others the same way he treats me. I will forgive. I will give second chances. I will be the friend, the teacher, the mentor, the roommate, the coworker who sees what those around you can be and dedicates himself or herself to helping them fulfill their potential in Christ. Be Barnabas.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.